Now I would like to introduce our guest. Dr. Novotny is Associate Professor of Cinema and Media Studies and the Director of the Black Film Center and Archive at Indiana University. His research focuses on Black cinema and popular culture. He is the author of Blaxploitation films of the 1970s, Blackness and Genre, the editor of Documenting the Black Experience, the co-editor of Beyond Blaxploitation, and the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Popular Culture. He has also published articles on Black Dynamite, C.S.A, This Is Us, and Jordan Peele's Get Out. Dr. Lawrence is currently co-editing the Oxford Handbook of Black Horror Films and co-authoring a book on, drumroll, Oscar and BAFTA-winning screenwriter and KU professor Kevin Willmott. Please welcome Dr. Novotny Lawrence.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay? All right, good evening. It's good to see you all here. Thank you, Professor Neill, for the warm introduction, and thank you to the KU Media Studies, Film Institute and Media Studies Department for having me here and for organizing. This is fantastic, and it is an honor to be here to celebrate Professor Emeritus Kevin Willmott. I always tell people that Kevin is very special to me because obviously he's an Academy Award-winning screenwriter. He's a wonderful director, but he's just a better dude if you know Kevin, right? He is the one who kind of encouraged me and taught me to go out and kind of do my thing. And for better or worse, you always do your thing and you let the chips fall where they may. So it's very nice to be here. And in September, Kevin actually did me a great honor because, as Professor Neill mentioned, I'm also the director of the Black Film Center and Archive at Indiana University, and we are the only repository in the world solely devoted to acquiring, preserving, making accessible, and putting on programming surrounding Black film here in the United States, across the world, and the diaspora more broadly. And in September of 2024, Kevin donated part of his collection to the Black Film Center and Archive, right? So I'm very thankful for that. And so, this is very exciting. I have to tell you, if you notice I'm kind of shifting, I get very excited when I get an audience. So you got to forgive me, and it makes me want to walk around, otherwise I just kind of feel lazy. So if I look at it, it's because I'm trying to behave myself tonight. There's a lot going on in this world that aligns with the revolutionary work that Kevin has done. Right?
Amen.
I want to be very clear, as we get ready to introduce this film C.S.A, I want to talk to you just a little bit about Kevin and independent Black filmmaking and then C.S.A. But I use the word revolutionary very intentionally. Like, I'm very intentional about that. And as I was preparing these remarks, kind of thinking about what I might say to you all tonight as we prepare to watch C.S.A, it took me back to the work of a scholar by the name of Richard Dyer, who in 1997 wrote this book called White. And in that book, he was talking about film, in particular the style of photography. But if you know anything about the evolution of cinema, then you have to understand that cinema, or photography, helped lead to the evolution of cinema, right? So in teaching, right, the photographic image, or learning how to take photographs, it's all about light. And early on in that process, you have to understand that film stock was created to capture images using white faces as the touchstone. I'll say that one more time. Using white faces as the touchstone, right? And so Dyer goes on and he says, and it's interesting because not only were people in early cinema kind of using that, right? Because when we were shooting our film, they were using this idea that white faces were easy to shoot. But then black faces, oh, that's going to be a problem, right? And so then, not only was black skin or shooting it and photographing it a problem, they also passed that thought on to ensuing photographers and filmmakers. So it's interesting that in this very art form that Kevin has harnessed to critique racial injustices, it was kind of built on anti-black sentiment, right? Mm-hmm. But to be a revolutionary is to take those tools, that cinematic apparatus that was made and positioned you as a problem, and to use it to critique a society that tells you you're a second-class citizen as well, right? That's revolutionary. Y'all don't hear me, right? For example, y'all look at me and think I love watermelon fried chicken. You know, those stereotypes, right? I do like both of those things, by the way. But it's not because I'm black. Okay, let me be clear about that. Okay? But these were the stereotypes of film history. And so black people couldn't enter into the mainstream film industry to correct these distorted visions that films like The Birth of a Nation or The Ruin and the Living of a Queen or A Watermelon Whose Food Contest perpetuated about black. Right? They couldn't do it. So we had filmmakers like Oscar Show who said, okay, we're going to start our own film movement with this medium that wasn't designed to capture our skin, right, clearly, and to make us look good. But we're going to take that and we're going to create our own stories, right? And we're going to show the world that black people aren't a monolith that is lazy and stupid and just eat watermelon, fried chicken, and not wanting to work, all the things that a segment of the population continues to say about black people to this day, right? So early on, they were pushing back against that. And I positioned Kevin alongside those filmmakers like Oscar Show and James Johnson, because he was harnessing the means of production, right, and making films that push back against the injustices that continue to plague these alleged United States of America, right? So this brings me to C.S.A. This wonderful film, I have to say. I was a graduate student here that was in the film and theater department at KU. I was in graduate school, and that's where I met Kevin. And Kevin grew up in Junction City, Kansas, and I finished high school in Junction City, Kansas. So there was this kinship, right? And so automatically we kind of bonded. And then I got to work with Kevin, and I was TA for him in classes, and afterwards, you know, we were teaching class. The class was at 6:30 at night. We would go from 6:30 to 10, right? I don't know what Kenny was thinking, but 6:30 to 10. And then Kevin and I would go out after class, and we would talk probably another 30 to 45 minutes about the wild films that we were introducing the students to, and we would just kind of hold court out there. And so it was great, right? And during that time, though, Kevin starts making this film called CSA-Confederate States of America. And it's funny because you know when you're in the presence of greatness, when people don't doubt that the film is going to happen. And this is tough because I will tell you, Kevin made CSA over a period of 3 years, right? And so never once did I remember anybody going, Kevin says he's making a film, and we shot something 2 years ago, but we still don't have the film. Never once did I hear anybody say, it's not going to happen. They believe him because he did it at 9th Street, and that something special is coming. And so this is something special, though, to teach society and film more broadly in our history. Right? And so to understand CSA, if you haven't seen it, or to add another layer to it if you have seen it, I want to share just a little bit about what it is that Kevin is pushing back. Right? How many of you know the film Gone with the Wind by show of hands? Right? Oh, right. That's great. I assume y'all would say, oh, it's a softball question. Right? That's what we do. People start feeling good, like, oh, I'm ready to participate now. Right? I know all the answers to the test. Right? I love it. So, here's the thing. If you've seen Gone with the Wind, how many of you have ever asked, why are you asking us to feel sorry for the Confederacy member? You might have asked yourself that question. And somebody says, I did it. Other folks might have been like, it's just so melodramatic. Right? I just didn't even think about it. I was just cheer at the start. Right? And I understand that because that is the power of cinema. It makes us feel it. Right? It evokes emotions. It takes us into worlds. It tells us stories that make us believe and do all the things. Right? But if you have ever asked yourself that question, and you think about it now, well, yeah, that's right. Right? Here's why. This comes as a result of the end of the Civil War. Right? After the Civil War, there's this thing that happens. We all know, or at least I hope we know, that the North won the Civil War, right? So the North wins, and the Confederates are beaten, but they do this strange thing. They don't want to apologize for trying to establish a slaveholder republic. Like, okay, we lost it, we're not sorry, right? Which tells you a lot about where you're living, right? And so they're not going to apologize. So there comes this thing called the lost cause tradition, right? Which kind of repositions things, like the cause of the Civil War. Any of you ever heard that the Civil War wasn't about slavery, it was about states' rights? Anybody ever heard that? Did somebody tell them states' rights to do what? As I always say, only people who look like me, that's what they were talking about, right? But this lost cause tradition kind of obfuscates that. People, including former Vice President, President of the Confederacy, people kind of started to backpedal when they initially said, no, we're fighting because black people are less than, right? White people. They started changing that Civil War in their autobiographies, right? They started changing. They kind of start changing, twisting, contorting in the name of making sure that the country is unified, right? This lost cause tradition. And that leads to what Kevin taught me about when I was his TA, which are redeeming things. So we look at a lot of these Civil War books and think about Dog the Wind, Earth the Nation, Cold Mountain, the Coen brothers' True Grit, right? A former Confederate, he's very brave, right? A former Southern general, right? Think about this, right? When you get this, because the primary goal is not necessarily to address the atrocities of slavery. A lot of people don't even think about that. The primary goal is to reunite the North and the South. And Kevin conceived of this design, and I teach it to this day, because it's fantastic. And it's not just dramatic films like Long to Win, but it's also some Western films, like Outlaw Josie Wales, the former Confederate Western gunslinger, and we cheer for them, right? It's also why, as a kid growing up in the 1980s, I was watching the Dukes of Hazzard, cheering for the guys driving the cars off the Turtle Lead. Like, what is that? Right? They sold that to me. I'm like, oh, look at you, all right. Right? And then I found out they kind of goofed me, y'all. But Kevin takes all of this on in CSA. And if you know Kevin, I can imagine him watching all of these review videos, like you said, right? Holidays videos, Off the Wind, he's looking at all these movies and then he just goes, bet, right? Because that was a challenge. And so Kevin continues to be revolutionary in his work because he takes on the lost cause tradition as it pervades cinema. But it's also about the ways in which that logic, that fuel, right, this idea of fighting to uphold the slave-holder republic, takes on that ideology too. Because the message is kind of the thing. And here in 2025, if you pay attention, I'm sure you do, right? And so I just want to contextualize this for you and say that Kevin also does in a brilliant way. It's a mock documentary about what would have happened at the South during the Civil War, right? It's satirical, it's hard-hitting, but you're going to enjoy it. And so what I ask of you is to let it wash over you, get invested, think about it, reflect, and then come up with some doggone new questions that we can answer during the Q&A. So without further ado, thank you for your attention, thank you for your engagement, I appreciate you. Let us watch Professor Kevin Willmott, Professor Emeritus Kevin Willmott, CSA, the Confederate States.